Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club. No Doogie today, he's off charming elderly women with his shag pile up and down the coast of Portugal, scaring children in the process. I bet it just looks like that mat of hair that forms near the plug.
Don't.
Every time he's in the pool, it just looks like that. Anyway, hope he's enjoying himself because he's a lovely fella. And we've got a lovely question to start proceedings. It's a very exciting weekend for European football. La Liga starts. We're going to move on to that with our big match preview. But first and foremost, Henk, KOK, has asked, which smaller team in Europe has been making the most interesting transfers? I like this because it's a little bit niche. We don't have to talk about one of the big boys. And you're going to kick us off with Hoffenheim, new manager, new key components of their squad.
Yeah, well, I think it would be surprising if their new manager is quite as good as Julian Nagelsmann. He could be very good and still not be at that level. But Alfred Schröder has come in to take control of the club. He spent last year as assistant manager to Erik ten Hag at Ajax, and before that 2 years as assistant manager to Nagelsmann. So he's actually got quite an interesting history. He's only once been head coach of a team, and that was at Twente, and that lasted, I think, 4 games before he got the sack. But, 4 games, it's not like he had a whole season and performed badly. Like, he could be anything, really. And they've done some interesting business. Like, they made about 90 mil off the sales of Joelinton, Demirbay, Schultz. And those are some big holes to fill as well. I mean, Joelinton maybe not so much, but Demirbay was obviously a key component of that midfield, their most creative player, and Schultz their second most creative at fullback. And I do have my doubts about how well they've replaced Schultz. They've brought in Staffelidis on a free transfer from Augsburg. He only got about 1,000 minutes last season, not particularly great creative numbers, so it'll be intriguing to see how he develops.
Because Schultz was a key pass behemoth, wasn't he?
It was like 2.2 key passes a game, which is really quite amazing when you consider that most of those were from open play. And Demirbay was up over 3, I think. So that's a lot of creativity lost. And Joelinton was probably going to be the centre forward of the future. He could play wide for them. He presses well. He's a good dribbler and also can play through the middle. So they're going to have to think about how they replace that. But they've done quite a good job, I think. They got Diadi Samaseko through the door in central midfield.
For 12 million euros, Patrice.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to go for closer to 20 to Borussia Dortmund from RB Salzburg. Now, he's probably one of the most highly rated central midfielders they've had in a while. I say in a while, like he's the one this year. Yeah. Like before that it was Amadou Haidara, who's actually his international teammate for Mali. And before that it was obviously Naby Keita. He has got, I think, about 13 caps for Mali and plays alongside Haidara and Yves Bissouma. They're a really strong midfield now. And actually they were really good at AFCON. They topped their group. They only were a little bit unlucky to go out in the second round because they came up against the Ivory Coast. And he is just a huge defensive output machine. Yeah. I mean, 6 to 7 tackles and interceptions in the Europa League and in the domestic league. He's not as much of a dribbler as someone like Keita or even Haidara, but he is pretty press resistant. A good passer as well. We've seen him in the past put up 1.5 to 2 key passes a game, though we wouldn't expect that to translate necessarily to the Bundesliga.
Interesting comparisons to Seydou Keita, used to play for Roma and Barcelona, obviously, in that he can put up these massive defensive numbers, but also has a really good array of passing. And we see that more on the international stage than, I guess, for Salzburg, because there's other people that can do that ball progression in the Salzburg squad. But yeah, you're right, 1.7 key passes for Mali at the AFCON.
Well, it just seems like there are really interesting midfielders coming out of West Africa at the moment, which is just as well like North and West Africa, I suppose, because that's really been a kind of under-researched part of the football world. There's obviously a ton of talent there, and finally we're starting to see it come through, particularly through Salzburg, who obviously have good connections with academies there. They've also got, going back to Hoffenheim, they've also got Robert Skov coming in, who's a Danish winger. He's 23. Last year got 30 goals and 10 assists from the wing. That
feels like he might have outgrown that league. Despite it being like his breakout campaign.
Yeah, and those are the sorts of numbers that make you think, okay, we are willing to take a low-priced risk on a guy from that league. I mean,
he's not really young, is he? Like you said, 23.
Yeah, but he's not old either. And you think about Brighton went and paid around 20 mil for Leandro Trossard out of the Belgian league. He's 24, and his numbers weren't this good. So you kind of think, okay, this is a worthwhile gamble for them to take. And they've also gone for a guy called Sargis Adamian, who came from Jan Regensburg in the Zweiten Bundesliga, so the German second division. And he last season was also playing wide, and in 33 games he got 15 goals and 11 assists. So they're really hoping, but they paid 1.5 mil for him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something they've done consistently. I think they paid 8 million euros overall for Joelinton, Demirbay, and Schultz.
Alexander Rosen, the director of football.
Yeah, and they've turned that into 90.
But okay, I'm a little bit puzzled now because I didn't know about that signing, but they've also signed Ilas Bebu from Hanover, and he's also a right winger.
Yeah, though Bebu is actually quite versatile. Like for Hanover, he was kind of pretty much the sole guy in that side a lot of times. And the last 2 seasons put up 0.5 expected goals and assists per game.
Nice.
He's 25 now, so you wouldn't expect there to be a great deal of upside in him.
Is that more padding the squad?
You don't think he's going to necessarily kind of generate much more than he's generated before, but he's a very, very good player. He does some good ball progression as well and defends pretty well. So I really like these signings, and whilst I don't think that necessarily they're going to push on, it should keep them reasonably competitive in the middle of the table. And if one of these guys explodes, like if Samaseku explodes, or if Skov is half the player in the German league that he was in the Danish league, then actually they could have a really exciting season because there's a lot of turnover, both in players and managers in the Bundesliga. So I think there's a real opportunity for Hoffenheim to re-establish themselves in the top 4.
Good stuff as always, and of course they are the right profile because Hoffenheim actually have the oldest squad in the Bundesliga at current, around 27, which is a reflection of how young squads are in the Bundesliga. The fact that makes them the oldest. Both these players 23, of course the guy from Hanover 25, so yeah, it brings that average age down a little bit. McCubbin, you've gone for Sevilla. We've covered them a little bit, already on Continental Club, but massive turnover. The San Ramon, what's it called? The Pizjuan.
The Ramon Sanchez.
Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. Yeah. What a mouthful. Too early for that. Far too early. So let's talk about some of their later additions. I'm not sure where you want to start with this, but I, for one, was very interested with the Ronnie Lopez signing, and I think they've got the sweeter end of the deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was always going to be a bit of a turnaround, wasn't it, with Monchi coming back in after 2 years away. Obviously, one of the first things they did was, one of the things they've done mainly is sell the two biggest signings that were made without Monchi over the last 2 years, which was Quincy Promes and Luis Muriel. Made losses on both of them. And I think in total they've spent around 135 mil, brought in 90 mil. So that's
pretty punchy.
Yeah, it is punchy. And I think, again, like when you're doing these big turnarounds, like with Hoffenheim, it's difficult to see exactly, where they progress or the likelihood of them kind of improving league performance.
Especially as this is a third or fourth turnaround, like it happened under San Paoli, it happened under successive kind of subsequent regimes. So they've got to gel quickly. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at the same time, obviously you put a lot of trust in Monchi as well. But yeah, the Ronnie Lopez signing's really exciting. I think at the start of the summer when they lost Sarabia for quite a pretty cheap price,
pittance.
There was quite a lot of question marks over whether they'd be able to easily kind of make up for the loss of his kind of goals and assists, and obviously Ben Yedder as well going to Monaco. I think between them they got around the kind of 40 goal contribution mark, so that's a significant loss. But having said that, Ronnie Lopez, absolutely brilliant for Monaco 2 seasons ago. I think he got about 20 goals and assists. Obviously last season dropped off a lot, but Monaco in general just declined so much, didn't
Bottomed
they?
Out, yeah.
It's difficult to really kind of do a full-scale analysis based on last season. And he's really versatile. He can play left, right, centre. Probably it offers more in terms of it offers more in a lot of ways than Pablo Sarabia, and is about 5-6 years younger. And they've also added goals up top. Munas de Boer coming in from RB Salzburg, I think got about 37 goals in 48 games last season.
Wasn't he?
Obviously not playing in a league anywhere near the calibre of La Liga, but that is quite a good sign that if he does get decent service, then he will, hopefully hit double figures this season. Luke de Jong as well from PSV, who was really prolific last term. I know there's question marks about the amount of headers he scores. I think nearly half of his goals come from headers, and last season I don't think any Sevilla player completed across a game. So that's a little bit alarming. However, Joan Jordan from from Ibar,
The boy.
who's also been brought in. He was completing over a cross a game, and I think completing over 2 key passes a game as well.
And it might be a style thing, right? Like if you've got Ben Yedder up front, maybe you just don't sling in crosses very much.
Joan Jordan was running Ibar's whole attack. But they were very defensively sound, weren't they? So Sevilla maybe a little bit more porous. So whether they can accommodate a player like Joan Jordan straight away, we'll see. But get him in the side. Your boy should have signed
him. He does
You've
defend
missed
well
out.
though, right? And they've also got Oliver Torres, who's going to play in the kind of 10 role, who also puts up a lot of defensive work. Right?
And Lucas Ocampos as well. Also, a lot of chances creators as well. So they've really kind of, it feels like they've really kind of bulked up that attack as to who actually starts in different areas, and obviously Lopetegui coming in as well, likes to play 4-2-3-1, sometimes like switch to 4-3-3 as well. So
Has he brought Reguilon in, or am I imagining that?
Yeah, Reguilon as well,
Reguilon.
left back. So
but only on a loan.
Okay.
Like Reguilon wants to make it at Real Madrid, he said that. But I think maybe at the end of the season, if Hakimi comes back and he looks at Hakimi, Marcelo and Mendy, he might be open to a permanent move. But I don't know, I still don't feel like I don't think they've upgraded their attack though. I feel, in fact, their attack is probably very slightly downgraded. It might be better in the long term because Ronnie Lopez, if he can maintain fitness, will be good. But when you think about last season, like 4 of their 5 top players in terms of expected goals and assists per 90 are gone. The only one who remains is Munir because Promes has gone, Silva has gone, Sarabia has gone, and Ben Yedder's gone. So that really worries me. Like there's only one player in the team who's got around 0.5 expected goals and assists per 90, and that was in a season where their attack was really good, and that was Munir.
Although of those 4, I would say Andre Silva, I mean, he had a really hot first half of the season and sort of died off second half. He was a little bit unlucky on expected goals and assists to only reach 9 goals.
I mean, I still think he's better than Dabur.
I think potentially worth keeping on a permanent, but with the whole Ben Yedder thing, I feel like the last couple of years probably we've seen the best of him, and there's going to be a gradual decline from here on in 30,
but
31?
then I feel
29 now.
But then
to
I
get
feel
that kind of money in from him, I think is just like.
I think the money's good, and getting Lopez in as well is good. But also, I feel like Lopez can't be the Ben Yedder replacement and the Sarabia replacement, and I don't really see. They've got to hope Oliver Torres is amazing, and he's never really put up absolutely enormous creative numbers that you'd like to see. Like so if they have a creator. It's very unlikely that anybody in that squad is going to be creating at the same level as Sarabia did last season. That is my concern.
But I think De Boer matches Andre Silva's output, even taking kind of good luck into consideration. And I suppose in Oliver Torres and Joan Jordan, they've tried to replace one player's output in Sarabia, haven't they? It's whether they could get them both.
But Sarabia was involved
side.
in 25 goals last season. Like Lopez has never done that. Like Ben Yedder was involved in 27. So De Boer and De Jong have an awful lot to make up there. And by the way, they still didn't finish in the top 4. So I mean, there's
that's what I was
there's a
going to say.
lot to be done.
Has selling these star players actually been to the betterment of the team as a whole if we take a more holistic approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you were saying, I think it's hard to know whether they're going to gel straight away, whether they're going to maintain the kind of level of last season, or whether they're going to decline. And yeah, like you say, like there's every chance that they could decline this season. But I think in the long term, this kind of spending should benefit the team, at least with Monchi's record. Like, I mean, you do put a lot of faith in him, but everyone they've brought in has pretty good numbers. They've generally spent under the 15 mil mark. Obviously, they broke the record for Lopez, and what is it for Torres as well? They broke it for, I can't remember who or for one of the defenders they brought in, came in for the same price as Lopez. So generally speaking, it feels like this is the kind of outlay which means that they're not going to have to do too much business in 2020, and then hopefully by that point the side will have gelled more. Obviously, it depends on Lopetegui as well. He's got massive points proof. Like he's never done it in La Liga. Obviously, Real Madrid was his only stint in the Spanish top flight. Porto before that, and then was just in the Spain setup before that. So. And he's an interesting manager, but
he's a good manager, I think, definitely. But that's one of the concerns, right? Like they haven't had any stability there. Like, and it worries me that they sacked Pablo Machin mid-season. Unless there was some huge falling out behind the scene, it worries me that they went through a bad stretch in terms of results, where actually their underlying performances were still pretty good, and they sacked him. That makes me think that maybe Sevilla are not as smart as we would like them to be.
Well, they've had a couple of really solid managers that below the elite level, aren't they, in Montella and Machine, and they've sort of flirted around the 4th, 5th mark, and it feels like the hierarchy don't think that's good enough. But the squad is probably reflective of a team that should be.
I don't know though. They didn't let Machine finish the season. I think maybe they'd have finished the season better off. Instead they got rid of him. Like Montella wasn't
what should
really
their aim
great.
be? Is what I'm trying to make out.
Well, it should be around 4th, 5th. But I think it was just that run of bad results that made them sack him, as opposed to like their perception of where they were going to finish up. Like it's because of course they were kind of running second in the league for the first half of the campaign. It just feels like since Sampaoli left, which was 2 years ago, they've had 6 different like managerial reigns. And that is troubling to me. And
we see that the benefits of sticking by your manager through that kind of tough period, in the form of their rivals Valencia. Marcelino, the players got behind him. Peter Lim was sort of unequivocal in his support, despite the fact they were 15th at one point and they drew like 11 games. And
then supposedly he almost left the club a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And they've decided to give him another shot, I think.
Just chill out. But I mean, they were extremely unfortunate last campaign. But of course, Rodrigo might be leaving to go to Atletico Madrid. So
they'll get ridiculous money though.
Yeah, apparently it's 60 mil, which is obviously not as much as they would have got had they sold him to Real Madrid the season prior. But then Marcelino probably would have got the sack without him. I'm going to bring something a little bit different to the table, and it is Angers from France, sort of a middling side in Ligue 1 who consistently punch above their weight because they have a very smart director of football who, like Monchi, has a very good track record of buying from the the second division or the lower echelons of the first division, and turning those players into, the superstars in some instance. We'll get on to Nicolas Pepe in a moment, but just really decent players, between the 10 and 20 million price bracket. So it's Oliver Piquet. I want to bring his work to the attention of the EFD squad. The 49-year-old turned out for 8 different French clubs as a player. I'm not sure if you know him. But he fast become one of the most adept dealers in the transfer market after hanging up his boots. And I think he took this role on pretty much after doing so. I think he's been there since around 2006. So he's been there for quite some time. His recent history. So let's go to kind of the latest transfer saga. Bought Jeff René Adelaide from Arsenal for €1.6 million, I think it was, after the productive loan spell in sort of 17-18, and then he had his breakout campaign last year. I think he clocked up around 2,500 minutes, and they've just sold him to Lyon for €27.5 million, which actually netted Arsenal €5 million in the process. They also bought Flavien Taitin, he's around 26 now, from Châteauroux for 300k. That was 3 years ago, and they just sold him to Rennes for nigh on €10 million, and Toko Akambi as well. Yeah. So he performed really well in his sort of debut season for a struggling Villarreal last campaign. He got 10 goals in around 37 appearances. I think he got 17 for Angers before he went to Villarreal for around €20 million. They bought him for €1 million from Sochaux. But cream of the crop has to be Nicolas Pepe. So plucked him from the 5th division in France as a 17-year-old. And 4 years later sold him for €10 million. Of course, they got some of the money from Arsenal when Arsenal bought him from Lille, because they had a sell-on clause as well. But just an awesome track record. And in terms of addressing the question, I feel like this is pretty much bang on. So that's kind of a brief history of their transfer dealings, at least a brief modern history. Let's move on to René Adelaide, because I thought that was a really interesting situation, and he was an interesting player, and I wanted to know why Lyon was so confident that he was their man, in the absence of Nabil Fekir, because it's pretty much like for like in terms of fee, isn't it? So match day 1, and that definitely helped. So 1 goal, 1 assist, and 9 dribbles completed.
Yeah,
as they beat Bordeaux.
Well, he's a dribble machine, isn't he?
He is. He averages about 3.3 dribbles. Well, he averaged 3.3 dribbles across the course of last season per 90, as well as 1.3 shots, 1.2 key passes. So the dribbles are definitely the standout statistic in his arsenal. Fouled 2.4 times per game, so wins plenty of free kicks in advantageous positions for his team. And was just deployed in a host of positions, a bit like your boy Ronnie Lopez. So central midfield, attacking midfield, kind of on the right-hand side in a traditional 4-4-2 setup, as well as like forward right and just an out-and-out forward as well. I was trying to look for players that he profiled quite similarly to kind of give these guys a good solid point of reference. And Zaniolo's radar on Understat was very, very similar. But Zaniolo did take one more shot, voice breakdown. He did take one more shot. That was kind of the only massive point of difference. And that is just, I mean, I'm guessing because Roma just took more shots in general. Angers profiled as a better defensive team than they did attacking team. So he generated an expected goals and assists of around 0.28, so not too dissimilar from Pablo Fornals as well at Villarreal. I think he's about 0.31, which isn't sky high, but again, we do have to temper that with the fact it was his first season of senior football, first meaningful set of minutes. That was good enough for 6th in the Angers squad. I think the guy I mentioned before went to Rennes significantly higher, but again, he's got 5 years on him. So he did finish strong as well. A bit of a slow start, involved in 7 goals in 20 appearances in 2019. So finished the season really strong, really got into his rhythm. But obviously a few inconsistencies he has to iron out. So nearly losing the ball 3 times per 90, which, if you're playing in the centre of midfield, it isn't great. More forgivable if you're on the forward right, if you're in attacking midfield, but if you're anchoring that midfield, well, not anchoring, if you're playing as the more kind of progressive central midfielder, then not fantastic. And he does have quite a high amount of lax touches per game as well. So I think 25 mil is a fairly solid price. However, I did prefer the move by RB Leipzig for Nkunku. I thought out of those two, he was the more outstanding talent. So while we wish Adelaide the best, I see him having, if he gets around 1,500 minutes at Lyon and they make him a more well-rounded player, I think that'll be a next good evolution for him, rather than being sold a little bit like Moussa Dembele last campaign. I mean, his numbers were fucking frightening when he came on, but if he can just improve and then the next season look to make a significant impact at Lyon, I think that'd be a good next step for him.
So who have they signed to replace him then? Because if Angers are so good at signing, then we should look at the players they get, and maybe they're the stars of the future.
So they've got. I didn't see it. So they've spent around 7 million euros.
Cool.
Which is
probably about 6 players.
It seems around par for the course. They got 4 players. The outstanding talent in there. I mean, I'm no expert on the sort of the middle table in Ligue 1, but they signed 24-year-old Sado Tayoub, I want to pronounce it. He comes in as his sort of direct replacement for 4 million euros from Nîmes. He made a couple of cameo appearances for Senegal at the AFCON, so he is a kind of international calibre, which for 4 million euros, you can't really knock. Like you said, it's kind of an underrepresented area of sort of, the continent in terms of plucking raw diamonds. Raw diamonds? Rough diamonds.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, you know what I mean.
Uncommon.
So he contributes to 8 goals on the right-hand side of midfield for Nîmes, who sort of finished, I think they were one of the surprise packages of the season. I think they finished like 8th.
7th, I think. Or
7th?
They had a couple of good players there, right? They had Savanier and they had Alacouche.
Alacouche the right back. Yeah, he's a brilliant player. So he contributes 8 goals, like I said, from the right-hand side. The standout stats, I think, was his dribbles, 2.6 per 90, so not as high as Adelaide, but he did have a higher completion percentage with around 62%, which is pretty impressive. So they've gone after a kind of like-for-like player and managed to bring someone who's very useful in the same regards for 4 million euros. So maybe he's not going to be the guy that they sell on, in 2-3 years' time for massive money, but they've at least brought in a guy who can keep them competitive in that middle bracket of Ligue 1, which I think, given the turnover of that team recently, is all you can kind of ask for maybe as an Angers fan. West of France? Am I right in saying that?
I don't know where Angers is.
West of France, maybe? Anyway, so that was my submission. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was kind of, 3 teams who we don't really cover an awful lot on Euro Football Daily. Of course, with some of the big leagues starting, we'll be back to Dortmund, we'll be back to PSG, we'll be back to Barcelona, Real Madrid, won't we? So we wanted to kind of end pre-season on this note. Let's move on to your quickfire questions. Just a couple then this week before we blast for our big match preview. First one's from Sankish2. Who are your favourites for the Champions League? We might as well do this at this point of the season. Put our necks on the line. Who are you saying, Pato? I said Barcelona last year. And that went well, didn't it? So, are we thinking an English club or someone from Europe?
I mean, Juve have upgraded a lot, but I still think I really like Sarri. I do think Sarri's a great manager, but I also think that there are just better managers, and I think that makes a real difference in the latter stages. So I'd probably go, same as the last couple of years, I'll just go Man City. Man City are the best team and they have the best coach.
Do you think if Pep wins that he walks off into the sunset? If he wins the Champions League? After a domestic treble, then he wins the Champions League. I mean, he's got a year left in his contract after that, hasn't he? But
Yeah, I think they'd make him sit out the extra year.
yeah, fair. They could just hold his family prisoner in the UAE or something. McCubbin, what are you saying?
I would have gone for City as well. I think it's really difficult to look past them. Like Pep's overdue, like a really good Champions League run, and it just feels like they're due for something to go their way in a quarter final. They're obviously going to get that far, and yeah, this City team could be even better this season than it was last season. But again, like Barcelona as well, with someone like Frankie de Jong, if he performs at the level that he did for Ajax last season at Barca, like he could be a really, really important figure. And obviously,
strengthening your squad, Barcelona, ridiculous.
Yeah, I've done massively, and obviously, like Griezmann's a bit. We've all got our kind of reservations about the Griezmann transfer, but that does in the short term upgrade your forward line quite a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to look past them as well. As for others, I don't know. PSG could be in with a shout as well. I feel like they'll be better than they were the last couple of seasons as well.
Well-rounded, maybe a bit more harmonious if they get rid of Neymar. Of course, if Neymar goes to Barcelona, I mean that is kind of a last-ditch effort to win the Champions League with Messi, isn't it? But you wouldn't put it past them. I just worry, Valverde, conservative tactics, bit of a boring manager. And the Champions League has kind of lended itself to teams who are willing to put their neck on the line across the course of two legs in the last few seasons. We've kind of seen with Tottenham and Liverpool. Oh God, I really want to provide some variety here. I could just go Barcelona. I mean, Messi's going to be on the warpath, isn't he? And they actually they're going to be less reliant on him domestically, which hopefully he gets a bit more of a rest. Yeah, Barcelona. I just think they've got the talent to make up for that gap between Valverde and Guardiola. Yeah, that's probably the most interesting answer I have. Last question before we move on to big match preview. Could Dortmund win the league this season with Bayern struggling to improve out wide? We had some pretty strong thoughts on this team in the office.
Yeah, I think they absolutely could. Like, I'm not particularly impressed by Bayern's business. Bayern identified the one area of their team which didn't need work and strengthened it. Like, they needed a better keeper. Neuer was dreadful last year. They haven't got one. They could probably use a couple of reinforcements in midfield, maybe one, and they definitely needed reinforcements up top, and they haven't done anything really except bringing in Perisic on loan. So the only area they've actually devoted significant money to improving is the defence, and the defence was fantastic last season. The defence was incredible. The defence didn't really need it, and don't get me wrong, like, spending in that area is fine if you can also spend in the other areas you need to, and maybe Bayern just have so much more money than we know. But currently I look at their attack and it doesn't. If Lewandowski isn't at his best next season, then it will not be the best attack in the league, because Leipzig have a really good attack already, and they're getting in a coach who supercharges forwards. And Dortmund have just gone out and bought players to cover for the fact that Royce is in decline, and that Sancho might not be expected to replicate his performance from last season exactly, or Paco either. So I think that I don't know. Last year, I kind of thought that was Dortmund's chance to sneak a title, and now I think actually this season is an even better opportunity.
Yeah, I'd agree. McCubbin, if you could take one transfer that's happened, and or one player and put them in Bayern's ranks, who do you think would make the biggest impact? What's the biggest missed opportunity for them this window?
Well, like Sane obviously was a big one, wasn't it? That not securing him was massive, and then him getting injured.
All eggs, one basket scenario.
It's difficult. I think it's got to be one of either Sane, obviously Werner as well. I think he could still be on the cards. I think Leipzig said they want 40 mil, and Bayern don't want to pay that, according to some latest reports.
Right?
So one of them two, although at the same time I think with Lewandowski kind of still ruling the roost, I think like how much Werner would be able to add at this moment, maybe not so much. Even someone like Federico Chiesa from Fiorentina, who's like a goal scoring winger who can play all across the front line pretty much. Also creates tons of chances as well. Feel like he kind of fits that bill, although he's more, I'd say probably more raw than someone like Sane or Ousmane Dembele. Just someone who can score loads and create loads from wide.
I mean,
That's basically what they
looks
need.
perfect, doesn't he? But he looks like he's going to be the make weight in any potential Neymar deal. I mean, they're proposing now PSG, Dembele and Coutinho for Neymar, which is like PSG getting the better end of the deal there, aren't they? They're getting what?
Probably money as well.
I mean, Neymar's 27, isn't he?
Yeah.
Neymar's in my school year. That's how I remember that.
Cool.
Didn't go to the same school. So,
Yeah.
Just to clarify. I think very much in line with your thoughts, boys. I think it's going to be another closely run competition, and it didn't necessarily have to be like that. If Bayern strengthened up front, I think they would have pulled away, because Dortmund massively overperformed last campaign, didn't they? In every metric possible. Their defence should have conceded more goals. They should have scored less goals. Subsequently, I think the swing of points maybe put them at fourth. I think Leipzig were probably the second best team in the Bundesliga last season. But we've covered all this stuff. So let's get on to the big match preview. Bilbao versus Barcelona. I'll just give you a few match facts that I've stolen from the Build website. So both league matches last season finished as draws. A 1-1 draw at the Camp Nou, a goalless draw at the San Mamés. Okay, Barca have only won four of their last. But Barca have won 4 of the last 5 trips to the same stadium and haven't lost to the Basque outfit in their own stadium since 2013. So do have a pretty imperious record over them. Bilbao, meanwhile, have just won 2 of the last 13 La Liga home fixtures against the Catalans. I mean, the most prominent notes I've got down here. Messi, probably not going to be included in the matchday squad, still carrying a bit of a knock. He could make the bench, but it's likely that they go with sort of a Griezmann, maybe Suarez, Dembele kind of front line, which feels like it's good enough to get the job done. Bilbao, no fresh injury concerns for them. Inaki Williams, of course, didn't go to Manchester United, probably wasn't on the cards, and ended up signing a 9-year contract. Only the second time since 13-14 they'll miss out on European football. So I don't know how clued up you boys are on this fixture. Of course, we've got a lot to get through in this week in terms of European football. But how do we see it playing out? Start with you on the end. The office's very own Catalonian.
Yeah, I can't say I've really kept tabs on Barca too much in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, absolute fraud. I mean, they played the Gamper Trophy, didn't they, against Arsenal? Yeah, I mean, what will be interesting to see is how many people actually turn up to the game, because obviously this is the first time they've done Friday night football in La Liga.
Yeah, just not a fan of Monday night football or Friday night football.
People seem to be very much set on the Saturdays and Sundays, which I find hard to believe. I feel like, considering everyone does things quite late in Spain, that a Friday night game would be all right. You could just fit that into your kind of evening schedule, but maybe not. But yeah, I feel like Barca, this should be a pretty manageable win for Barca. I don't really have too much to add.
Yeah, that's understandable. We're not profiled Bilbao in depth at this point, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, Bilbao, this is not a great Bilbao side. Iñaki Williams is finally starting to look like a better player. Like his numbers have got better every season, but he is 25 now, and so it probably feels like it's not going to go that much further.
Felt like a gamble at 50 mil, didn't it, for him to go anywhere?
But that's just the classic Bilbao thing. Like, if you want to get someone out of Bilbao, you pay their buyout. There's no other way. They will not negotiate, and you can understand why, because it's hard for them to find players. So to them, Iñaki Williams is like gold dust.
2 really tumultuous seasons as well. Let's get some score predictions. Start with you on the Emma Cubs.
I'm going to say 3-1 Barca.
Sensible, like so.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe. Though San Mamés is difficult.
Yeah, let's go for a 2-1 with Barcelona, with a last-minute winner from Barcelona, and subsequently Barcelona fans calling for Valverde's head in the first game.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. What do you guys think? Let us know your score predictions in the comments below. If you get any bang on with the first goal scorer, we'll give you a shout out on EFDs at Twitter. What else is happening across Football Daily? Euro Football Daily, squad goals. What's been your favourite clip recently?
Latest squad goals, overtime, came out yesterday. That's us playing GTA, so something unfootball related.
You lot
but very funny. Pretty bored of football. At least FIFA. But now it's just us kind of kicking the shit out of each other on GTA. That's basically it. Just 10 minutes of that. So that's quite fun. Obviously Stat Wars is back as well. Stat Wars the League on here. So that's very entertaining. Yeah, that's all I can bring to the table, really.
Got some podcasts coming out?
Yeah, check out The Game's Gone Mad with me, Pete Dorman, and Zach Jellab. Obviously, no Olivia Dodd anymore.
I like your tweet, the Olivia Deadcast.
The Olivia Deadcast, yeah.
Just clarify, she's not dead.
R.I.P. Olivia Dodd, dead to us,
Yeah.
if not to the world.
True. Thanks, guys. Bye. Oh, we didn't do a subscriber push, so I'm gonna include that now. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit that button. That was clumsily handled. Bye.